these fish hooks are made with pine resin and cordage and, of course, a couple of thorns and a piece of wood. But the pine resin is the most important part. Yeah, that's a stone sinker. Before you can work with pine resin, you gotta find pine resin. So that's what we're about to go do. We're gonna go find some pine resin, and then once we get some, we're going to learn how to make some tools, and I'll show you how to use it for lamplight, and also how to make torches for lighting your way at night. Sometimes pine sap isn't too easy to find, but if you can locate a pine tree like this one here, it has a split. See that pine sap leaking out right there? Well, it doesn't look like much, but if you're making a fish hook or some other kind of smaller tools, that pine sap right there, that's a good sized chunk. Healthy trees don't leak, but trees that have an injury like this split right here, that's where you find your pine sap. Oh yeah, there's some right there. Yeah, nice fat wad of it right there. Oops, drop that one. Alright, that's going to be enough. Now that I found a cactus, I can cut them needles off right there with my knife. Just cut them off with a knife, and you can use those for your fish hook. Now that I've got all my materials gathered up, I'm going to show you how to make a fish hook out of pine sap and a couple cactus needles. This is what you'll need. You need 2 pieces of limestone, a moth cocoon, you need 2 shells, and of course an ample amount of pine resin. You need 3 or 4 cactus needles and a nice bent piece of pine wood. This one I split from the knot of a piece of heart of pine, but you can use any bent twig off a tree. You just make sure you get all the bark off of it, and the bend in it makes it really nice and rigid, and it also provides you with the appropriate shape to make a fish hook out of. So let's get it started. The first thing you do is kind of open up your cocoon a little bit. I just tear the top off of it. It's kind of like silk, and yeah, you can make these to make cloth out of, because these are the silkworm type cocoon. See, you just tear the top off of it, make a nice hole, and you gotta take pine resin. So you take your pine resin and you just fill up the cocoon. It's going to burn like a wick. Then you take a shell of some sort, not necessarily this kind of shell, but any kind of shell that will hold it. And you press it down in there so that it holds it like that, and then you're ready to light it. You can use a magnesium flint stick, or if you got a bonfire burning already, you can take a twig and put it over there, but I'm going to use a cigarette lighter. You'll have to kind of shelter the early fire. You also want to make sure it doesn't fall apart. We're going to let that burn down for just a second and get going really good, and then I'm going to complete the process. Once your fire gets going good, you set the shell on there, just like that. Lay your pine pitch in there. You have to kind of adjust everything so the heat goes where you want it to go. And once the pine pitch melts, you'll be ready to start finishing your fish hook. And of course you're going to start with this here. See the pine sap starting to bubble and melt just a little bit. Get a close up. See it starting to bubble. It starts to catch on fire. You know you've got it too hot. You see the cocoon burning like a wick? Oh yeah, that's good. See, now I got my melted pine resin. I'm just going to dunk my stick in it, coat the stick, rub it in with your finger. And you take your cactus needles. I use 3 or 4 of them because one cactus needle might break in a fish's mouth, but if you have 3 or 4 of them, they hold up a lot better. You remelt your pine resin, stick the hooks on there like that, and let it cool. And as you can see, they're effectively glued on there. Then you take your piece of cordage, and you lash the needles on just like that. Just simple lashing. One layer, you don't want to make it too thick and fat. And because you're using pine resin, you don't have to tie a lot of fancy knots or anything, just 1 or 2 half hitches. Put a nice half hitch in there. And once it's melted, dip your finger in there and you coat the string with pine resin. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit hot, but it won't burn you. Unless you touch the broiling hot shell, then that might burn you. The shell might burn you, but the pine sap won't. Take a knife or whatever else you got, trim the strings. This last step is really important because your fish hook has raw pitch all over the string, and what you want to do is you want to heat it up. You don't want it to catch on fire. You just want to heat it up so that it melts into the cordage. This last step is really important because your fish hook has raw pitch all over the string, and what you want to do is you want to heat it up. You don't want it to catch on fire. You just want to heat it up so that it melts into the cordage. You just want to kind of burn it in a little bit. And if it's still chunky, you can kind of flatten it out a little bit with your fingers. And when you're done, you've got a perfectly good fish hook that you can use to catch any fish with. Now how about that? And that's the genuine and traditional method for making fish hooks. Next I'm going to show you how to use pine sap to make lamps out of, so you can see at night. And the traditional lamp was a lamp that looked like a bird nest. Basically just a little bird nest with two stones in it, and the Native Americans would use a piece of the underside of a red belt bracket fungus or some other tree fungus like that has a porous center to it. In the northern woods, well, of course, the red belt bracket fungus grows there, and also what they call tinder cramps, which is another kind of fungus that grows on the birch trees, and the inside of it is got the consistency of leather almost. And those are really good kinds of wicks to use. And you can also use a wasp nest or deer moss, or a piece of cloth even. You know, if all you got is just your shirt, you can take a piece of your shirt and use it for a wick, so long as it's cotton. And there's a lot of different things you can use, but the traditional thing was to use the underside of a red belt bracket fungus, and that's what I'm going to show you. The red belt bracket fungus, it looks like this. They grow on oak trees, and of course I've scooped the underside of this one out to use for wicks. And I can also use this for a cooking stove if I fill it with oil and put some of the underside back in there as a wick. I can use this as a cook stove. But when using pine sap, you got a little stone there and another stone on the other side. For the bird nest, and you put a little piece of wick in there, and you would pour melted pine pitch into it. And but if you're using raw pine pitch that hasn't been melted, what you can do is you can take another kind of shell, like this right here, fill it with pine pitch, just jam it in there just like that. And you take a wick, put raw pine pitch on it, just like that. Just put some raw pitch on it, stick it down inside the shell. And of course you want to prop it up on something where it doesn't just sit right on the ground. Like that. Of course I'm going to use a cigarette lighter to make things go a little bit easier. And you just light it on fire like that. And the wick will continue burning until all the pine pitch is gone. And the good thing about burning a lamp like this is when the pine sap does burn down, you can add to it, because the shell gets hot, and you can just keep adding pine pitch to it. As the pine pitch burns up, you can just add more pine pitch. And that gives you a really good means of having lamp light at night when you don't have oil, you don't have candles, you don't have wax or anything like that. you can just use pine pitch. And of course you can use a piece of string, you can use a piece of cloth, deer moss, and like I said, a wasp nest. Palmetto fibers, and the cloth-like palmetto fibers work very well with this method as well. And so long as you keep adding pine pitch to the lamp, it'll continue burning, as the shell makes a reservoir for the wick to suck the oil up out of it, or the pine sap up out of it. And so long as you keep adding to it, it'll keep burning. Yep, that's pretty neat. Pine sap's starting to burn low a little bit, so I'm just going to take a little bit in my fingers right here. Oh, actually, I like using a stick. Set it under near the lamp. And just let it melt off. And it wants to flow right down into the reservoir. And when it flows down into the reservoir, the lamp just keeps burning. And you can maintain it for hours like that, as long as you keep adding to it as needed. Of course, a tiny shell like that, you'll have to add to it every couple minutes. But if you had a big one, well, a big one will burn for a lot longer. And also, you can use pine fat wood to make mini torches out of. You just light one of those on fire. Once it gets going really good, it'll burn for several minutes and it'll make a good torch. See, it just wants to burn on its own. And once they get going good, they'll take a good breeze without blowing out. If you have a handful of them, if you have a handful of these, you'll have torchlight for several hours. And you can just prop it up on a stick like that, and they'll burn for a long time. So that's a pine sap lamp and a pine sap torch. And they work pretty good. And when you're burning the egg in the nest lamp, what you do is you put your pine resin on the stones. The stones heat up, and you put your raw pine resin on the stones, and it melts down and runs into the reservoir, and the wick picks it up and burns it. So that's how those work. If you put your pine sap right on the burning wick, you'll probably put it out. You don't want to do that. So what you do is you put your pine resin on the heated rock, on the hot rock, and when it melts, it runs down into the reservoir, and that's all you got to do. And of course, you can have melted pine resin and pour it in there, and that's another method of doing it. But that takes more than one lamp. So, and however you choose to do it. But pine resin makes an excellent fuel and an excellent material to make tools out of. Next, I'm going to show you the various mixtures of pine resin and other components for doing things like making waterproof sealants, making fish sinkers, fishing sinkers. What you do is light a torch on fire, melt some pine resin. And you just take a pinch of sand and you mix it into the pine sap once it's melted. So you just take your melted pine sap and put a nice pinch of sand in it. Stir it in real good, just like that. You tie a loop in your fishing line, and while it's still warm and workable, you bury your fishing line in it. And once that cools off, you can see you got a nice sinker for your fishing line. And when the clarified pine resin hardens with sand in it like that, it's almost as hard as concrete. And it has a lot of other uses than for just a fish sinker. And you can use it for anything. You need a really hard substance like concrete. If you can get enough pine sap and you got sand, well, you got a substance that's very much like concrete. So that's some really good stuff, and really good technique to know. Another comment I'd like to make about pine resin and clarifying pine resin is once you've boiled it, you boiled all the turpentine out of it, it's no longer sticky. It's like varnish. You can stick it right to whatever you touch it to. It's not sticky anymore. It's just like varnish. Yeah, pine pitch has a lot of uses, especially for making tools like this pair of tongs here, for picking up hot rocks and stuff like that. And of course, you can make arrowheads. You can fix bone knife blades to a wooden haft or whatever, just whatever you need. And you can use it like varnish if you need to preserve a piece of wood and you don't have varnish or whatever. Just melt some pine sap and paint it with pine sap, and it'll coat it and protect it just like any other varnish would. And if the pine sap you're fixing to go and collect is really runny or really sticky and not more solidified like the stuff I found earlier, what you can do is take a leaf or a piece of bark or something like that and just spin it around into a cone like that. Just spin it up into a cone. And put a stick to it like that, and you've got a nice cone to put your soft pine sap in, so you don't get it all over your fingers. And of course, you can use another small stick to scrape it off the tree and fill your cone with, so you don't get the pine sap all over your fingers. If you don't have shells or anything to melt your pine sap in, what you can do is just light it on fire on top of a piece of wood, and it'll drizzle down the piece of wood and clarify, and all the material that you don't want, the bugs and the pieces of bark and the pine needles and all that stuff, will stay in a lump where the fire is, and you can see the clarified pine sap will run right down the piece of wood. So if you don't have a vessel to boil it in or whatever, you can just light it and let it run down a piece of wood, and when you get a sufficient amount of it, you can just blow it out. You see? And you can just get your pine sap up and use it. So pretty simple, nothing difficult about that. This is wonderful stuff, and I use it quite a bit. Now that you know how to clarify pine pitch and make some simple tools, I'm going to show you how to use pine pitch to make a waterproof sealant and also make some chewing gum. So in the next half hour, I'm sure you'll be looking forward to that because I got some interesting. Yep, this piece of grapevine will do just fine. And what I do is I leave forks at the ends. Well, I need to have some light for tonight, so when I'm fishing down by the lake I'll be able to see what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together an oil lamp. And you can see I got a shallow bowl right here. See, a shallow bowl. Yeah, it's shaped like a duck. And the first thing I got to do is put a handful of this fine gravel in there. Just gonna pour it in here like that. Flatten it out. And then, I'm going to dig around in my backpack here. I got to have a piece of wick material, and I'm just going to use some of this jute twine that I've got. Cut a little piece of it. I got a good sized length of it here. And then I'm going to just quadruple it up and fold it over in half again. Get a good 5-6 layers there. Just get a nice fat string like that. And then what I do is I bury that in the gravel. Buried in there like that. Don't matter if you lose some. It's alright. You take a stone that looks like this. Set it on there just like that. And you take a stone that looks like this. And you let that make one claw. See, another stone shaped like this. See? It goes right there like that. Wick comes up in between the claws right there. And of course I've got a tail stone to put on it. It's actually a weight for a net. But you could also use it for a fishing weight to make your bait sink if you need to. And it goes right there like that. And then I've got a nice wooden fish hook right here. Made from a piece of wood and a thorn and some pine sap. It goes right there, and when you put that in there, that kind of looks like a scorpion. I'm going to take these two hooks right here. And give it some legs. Now later on when it gets dark, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some oil into the bowl. And I'm going to soak the wick with oil. and I'm gonna light it on fire, and it's gonna burn just like any other oil lamp to provide me with some light when it gets dark. So, but I'm gonna wait till then. Here's a little bit better look at it. See, it's got two claws and a wick that comes up from in between them. A couple legs. And the sinker stone and the fish hook make a tail. Kind of looks just like a scorpion. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fish hook and my sinker, and I'm going to tie it onto the end of that little piece of grapevine that I got there, and it'll give me a lot more length, and I can use the vine like a fishing pole, and that'll be a good thing to use. So all I gotta do is unwrap this. The string I got here was just a piece of dental floss that I had in my backpack. It's the cloth kind, not the clear plastic. And let's see, I got about 6, 7, 8 feet there. At the ends of the vine, see, I left a fork in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lash it around that real good. Just knot it on there real good like that, and yeah, just tie it on it in there, and that'll extend your reach quite a bit, and it gives you kind of a good pole to pull them in with. It won't break. So yeah, it's pretty convenient. See, just tie it on real good there at the end, and don't have any other pieces that can get in your way. And that's all there is to it. Now I gotta find some bait. Wow, look at this. It's beautiful. There goes some food right there. There was some food. It just took off into the woods. Maybe I should have tried to get that one instead of talking about it. Let me get back to my fishing. Some big birds over there across the lake. If they're finding insects near the lake, maybe I can too, because I need to go fishing. So I'm going to go right down there and see what I can find. Wow, look at that bear track. There's my hand. See, look at that. That was a big black bear. The day's almost gone. I need to catch a fish. Okay, it's almost dark, so it's time to fill my lantern up. What I do is I pour the oil down over the wick, and I fill the bowl that way. Just pour it right down in there nice and slow. You don't want to make a big mess or nothing like that. Let the oil drain down into the gravel. You gotta make sure it's nice and level and everything. You don't want it to be uneven. You don't want to overfill it. And that's all you do is just put oil in it. You let it soak real good. And right when it gets good and dark, I'm going to light it so I can see how I'm going to fish tonight. That's almost too much oil. Oh well. That'll have to do. Yeah, at least I'll be able to see tonight. Sometimes they can be a little difficult to get lit, but once they get going, they stay going for a long time. We'll see. I'm just about ready to cast my hook out there. Had a really difficult time trying to find any kind of bait. Minnows are really tiny and too hard to catch. Just the main portion of that string burns down. You'll leave just a wick sticking up to keep burning. It'll go with a pretty good sized flame because I wadded it up 5 or 6, maybe 7 layers thick, 8 layers thick. I put it next to that log there to help act as a windbreak. And because the wind is coming this way, I may want to put it on the other side. It'll probably burn a little bit better. If it gets any breezier, I'll move it. Eye on that out there, and maybe I'll catch something. Yeah, it's right at dusk now. If I was to go up into the woods right now, the mosquitoes would tear me up. They'd eat me alive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay down here by the edge of the lake for a few hours until it cools off. Probably about midnight or something like that. And then I'll go up off the edge of the lake and try to get some sleep. I don't want to sleep here on the edge of the lake because of those bear tracks I saw over there. It might come back. So I'm going to sleep away from the lake. But before I do that, it's going to have to get a little bit later and a little bit cooler because the mosquitoes. So I'll just stay down here and fish. Yeah, whenever I see my little vine right there starting to move. I know there's a fish on the end of it. I'll just stay here away from the edge of the water and stay still, and maybe want to come up to the fish hook and strike at it. See, there's a turtle right out there. Right over there. I just saw his head bop up to the top. That's still burning good. I gotta check my fishing line. Alright, I'm gonna check my line again. You see a little bit of light. Anything I need to do for my fish hooks or whatever, I've got light to see by. Yeah, I see the bait's gone off of my hook. Piece of that on there. I'm going to just set it back out. Oh, there he is. Yeah, turn on the night vision. Yeah, it's just totally dark out here right now, and I haven't caught any fish yet. But so long as I stay down here by the edge of the lake until it gets a little bit later, the mosquitoes won't be quite so bad. I mean, they're out, they're biting me a little bit, but if I was to go up there into the woods back there behind me, it would be really bad. So I'm gonna stay down here for a few hours and try to catch me a fish. I lost my first bit of bait. I don't know if it fell off or something ate it off, but I just rebaited my hook and put it back out there. And all I can do is just wait it out. Well, my little oil lamp's still burning good. Yeah, thanks to the scorpion. Well, scorpion stones. I've got a good light to see by tonight. Well, all I can do is just periodically check my fishing line out there. Kind of keep an eye out for that bear that I saw the tracks of. I don't want it sneaking up on me tonight. It's going to be a long night. I found a huckleberry bush. See the little berries? Several of them on this bush. Alright, then we're going to be good. And this here is a wild blueberry bush. See, it's got the blueberries right there. This one doesn't have very many ripe ones on it. Most of them are still green. But all of them can be eaten though. They don't have to be ripe. Alright, this is a great find right here. There's another bush. It's got some on it. One right there. Yeah, this is really going to help. Yeah, these are going to be extremely tasty. I'll have to look around. There was these plants here, so there may be more close by. I'll have to look around and see if I can find more. Yeah, this bush is loaded with them. Alright. Maybe I will have a good meal tonight. Alright, that's a good sized handful of berries right there. Let's see what else I can find. Thank you, berry bush. But this time I made a teepee fire lay. And it's going to provide good light, good heat. And I'm going to use the coals from it to cook my mushroom with. And flint. Just using the back of my knife. And there it is. I got my spark. See, right there it is. See it smoking? Alright. My fire's lit. Then what I do is I make a fire bundle, gently wrap it up, and blow it into flame. See? There it is. All right. Feel these pine needles here. Oh, that wasn't so hard. It's a piece of flint in the back of my knife. Here's a good boletus mushroom. See? Nice and yellow on the bottom, blue staining when you touch it. It's kind of a cream colored filabrose stalk, golden brown cap. This mushroom I can eat. Alright, we'll cut that part off. Slice it down the middle and look at it. It does have some bugs in it. I think I'm going to eat it anyway. And slice it up. And I'm going to boil it really good in that pot of water right there. Alright. Yes, that's just a nice lemon yellow. Nice and brown right there. Nice brown or golden bleach. Some people call them a golden bleach because they have kind of a golden color to them. Golden yellow. Excellent food. Alright, so I got my mushroom in there. I'll find a place to put it on the fire where it'll cook. Yeah, right there. Be nice and hot. And we'll let that boil for about 10 minutes. And then I'll be able to eat it. And this water I'm boiling right here, I'm boiling it to sterilize it so I can drink it. Oh, nothing to do but maintain the fire and let it cook. Alright, then we're bubbling nicely. I want to make sure they're completely, absolutely, thoroughly cooked. Of course, maybe sauteing these in some oil would be a lot better. But I don't have any out here with me. They'll be good this way too. So you bring the water up to a nice hard boil and you let it boil for about 10 minutes. Boy, those look good. My bucket of lake water is steaming hot. It's almost ready to boil. So that'll be nicely sterilized. I'll be able to drink that later once it cools off. I might make a tea out of some pine needles. Alright, my mushrooms are cooked. My little water pot goes back in the pan because I'm going to make some tea. And to start that process, I'm going to use this handful of berries. Throw them in there. And now I'm going to go get some pine needles. Alright, my mushrooms are cooked. My little water pot goes back in the pan because I'm going to make some tea. Yeah, you just use the pine needles from any tree. I like the more tender, lighter green ones at the tips. And it helps if you crush them up a little bit. You get more flavor out of them than just throwing them in there whole. So I like to crush them up pretty good first. And get the oils to start coming out of them. And it doesn't take a lot for a cup of tea, just a small handful. Just put them in there like that. And you let it boil thoroughly for about 8 to 10 minutes. And I'll have a nice cup of tea. See, my drinking water's been brought up to a rolling boil, so I know that's thoroughly purified. And I should let that boil for about 10 to 15 minutes. And you just hear it bubbling away. I was so worried about trying to eat. That storm snuck up on me. Oh, it's just pouring down the rain. I guess I'm going to get wet today. I've got this nice, hot, flavorful drink of berries and pine needles. That's going to be really good. All the berries give it such a nice flavor. Kind of tart, but yet sweet. That's good. Let me go ahead and fill up my canteen. Almost a quart. Alright. That's ready. That's a lot better. Got a nice warm fire going. Got my clothes drying out. I had a good meal on all those berries and that mushroom and the tea. I'm set for the night now. I just need to get some kind of a little shelter together. That won't take long. Everything's dripping wet. So, it's going to be one of those kind of nights. Yeah, this place right here where there's a thick bed of pine needles is a perfect spot to build a shelter. It's under some big pines. It'll help keep the rain off if it starts raining again. This will be a good spot. Yeah, I always make sure I cook my food away from where I'm going to camp at, especially in areas like this because of all the bears that are out everywhere. They smell the food and they come right up into your camp, and that's not really good. So I always cook my food several hundred yards away from where I'm going to camp at, and then I have less chances of a bear encounter.